Welcome to Dr. Jester Rants, and I'm gonna rant about this from the inverse. Anthony Mackie levels up. The start of Peacock's Twisted Metal opens up on Captain American 4. Wait, they're making Twisted Metal? That's right. Oh yeah, they are. But is it out yet? Well, anyway, the threat of Hollywood actor strike and vehicular mayhem. Yeah, I'm not caring about that. Moving on, and on. Eventually, I'm gonna reach the part where I actually fucking want, which is eventually right around here. Yeah, here is what he says. Right. Mackie sees Spark as a chance to help address the ongoing shortage of role deserving of young black talent. Harry Potter had no fucking black friends. Frodo walked across the entire universe and never met a black dude. I want to see Frodo in the Hood, which if I ever do Saturday Night Live, it's going to be a skit I'm going to do. Well, first and foremost, Harry Potter did have a lot of diverse and black people in there. And that's not even the question. And plus, I'm not that familiar with the Harry Potter franchise, because let me just go and say it out loud. I am not much of a Harry Potter fan. Yeah, it's certain parts in that are interesting, but I'm just not into it. Just try not to go into it. But I am definitely a Lord of the Rings fan. And here I'm going to go on and say that it was J.R.R. Tolkien. Entire point was to make it as a story for England. Something that it could be called England's own story, own fantasy, which inspired a lot of tales that we have today. And you can go on and pretty much point out on the map that, well, let's just go on and say it out loud. In medieval times, England, well, Europe and North Africa was not aware of the central and southern part of Africa. There was a tiny little bit of a situation called the Sahara Desert. And that Sahara Desert was and is pretty much a, well, it's a little bit bigger than a kitty litter. It's dry, it's full of sand and soil, and it's inhospitable, and it's pretty hot, lacks of water, and it's pretty big. So technology from the Middle Ages was a bit lacking in that regard. You couldn't just hop on a plane, despite as much as these woke-tards and Anthony Mackie, not Hopkins, Mackie, yes, Anthony Mackie says, despite all of that, you could just not grab a fucking plane and go there and cross the desert. But before I go on, here is a trailer.
Chosen knight. We are born of sin and crime. We are repentance personified. We are immortal. We are legend. We are God's wrath made manifest. And we know no fear.
Alright. Sorry about that. The button wasn't working as I was pressing it. Oh well, anyway. Where was I? Right. Here. As you can see, Sub-Saharan Africa is relegated to these areas, and they were not very much open in communication. Neither these knew about here, neither these knew about anywhere else. Let's just go on and say that it's just a pretty much of a given, because it's difficult to reach those regions, especially once you cross the Sahara Desert. You still have to go through a lot of forest and jungles that had a lot of diseases and parasites and bugs that would essentially kill you if you were not familiar with it. And even if you were, there was still a lot of diseases to go through. So it was difficult for these regions to communicate. So basically you would not find a black person in the Middle Ages in Europe, nor would you find a white dude in these regions. Mackie, if you want to do something like Lord of the Rings, go sit your fucking ass on your goddamn fucking chair, read about the stories in that region, because there's a lot of it. You can go get familiar with it, inspire yourself with those tales, sit down and write it. There is a lot of stories that you could inspire yourself into. You could grab something related to some gods in those regions, and you could then, inspire yourself and write an epic worthy of movies, of a trilogy, and have books, and you could end up actually having your name be remembered through history. Let's face it, there's a lot of actors back in the 60s and 70s and 80s and even 90s that were very famous during those times that today is just a footnote on a book. You could make sure that your name could be forever remembered with a story akin to Lord of the Rings, but for Sub-Saharan Africa. You could do all of that, but you won't, because you're a goddamn fucking lazy bastard. And all you want is to virtue signal and say, here is the Frodo in the hood. Yes, that's all you want. And the woke-tards will definitely want to chew on that one, and they will actually feel proud. But then, a few years later, they'll forget about it. And, of course, after you go bankrupt, because people will not be interested in watching this garbage, because Rings of Power has already been tried. And look at Amazon. Did they earn money back out of this garbage? No. Did they actually earn viewers out of this one? No. In fact, the only thing that Amazon have been able to do was the virtual signal on the first episode, which some people actually felt interested, that were not aware of the history behind it. They watched it and saw, what sort of garbage is this piece of shit? And they tuned out on the other episodes. They couldn't even finish the first one in most situations. Well, even though they were coupled with the second one, they still could not even bother watching the second and third one. Yeah. Anyway, which also led to Amazon, not only that, blocking the reviews for more than a week, because they were getting zeros and ones on that one. That's how bad it was. So, instead of doing something like Rings of Power, why not? Why not? Anthony Mackie, you sit down, write an epic tale for Mali Empire, or the Songhai Empire, House of Fulani, Benin, Yoruba, or Neri Igbo, Nok culture, Empire of Canaan, Wolof. Write stories and epics about all of that region. Make good guys and bad guys. Make the bad guys from the north be white people. and do all of that stuff that you people are famous of, and make an epic worthy of trilogies and all of that. Yeah, it's too much work, isn't it? Yeah. But history is history. And as much as you people want to try to change it, it's not going to happen. Yes, history has already been written. It's already factual. You can't just go around and change it. As much as Democrats, the leftists, and people like you want to do it, it's just not going to happen. So, Tolkien made this based on Middle Ages history, made it all based on history, and added the fantasy aspect to it, but it's still based on history, on England, on Middle Ages of Europe, and all of that stuff. So, how would you do it, Anthony Mackie? How would you do it? Well, anyway, on that goddamn fucking hell, have a great fucking night. Oh, and thank my girlfriend for actually pointing this out to me.